I'm Christian Cushman.
And I'm Will Roeder, and we are here interviewing Mr. Dick Schultz. It is December 3rd, 2019, and we are at Marquette High School. Our videographer is Thomas Riley.
I am the videographer, Thomas Riley.
Okay, when and where were you born?
I was born in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, 1937.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit about your childhood?
My childhood was a quiet one. I was a person who didn't congregate, didn't want to, well, in a bold way, say, make friends. I felt very comfortable in approaching life on my own and in a positive way.
Okay, what did you enjoy most about your hometowns living in Wauwatosa and Brookfield for most of your child life?
Wauwatosa was a place to find out what you wanted to do. They almost had everything there. I did use every possibility that didn't cost much money, but at the same time I wanted to advance my thoughts about the city and how I myself could advance the growth of it.
And was Brookfield a similar way?
Yes, Brookfield was newer, later. It was also a good city to live and grow up in. I got to a point in Brookfield where I was grabbing up small jobs, nothing important, just to have change money in my pocket. Other than that, it was mostly a home situation and studying.
Okay. Do you remember what set these small cities apart from Milwaukee at the time? Do you remember what set apart Brookfield and Wauwatosa from Milwaukee at the time?
Oh, what set apart? It was a communities that didn't get wound up in big politics. I lean more toward Milwaukee for the sports of it. I was more interested in that.
What was your family life like, and how was it growing up with 3 other siblings?
Okay, I did have a good life with my siblings, with my family. We had good thoughts, good possibilities. We traveled a lot, saw a lot of America, and it was fruitful and interesting.
So earlier you said you were kind of a quiet kid, kind of shy, not one to talk a lot. Were you quiet at home too, or were you different there?
Yes, glad you brought that up. I was quiet at home too. I didn't want to involve myself with my parents' problems, and as far as my brothers and sisters, I had nothing to add to their. They never came to me about it, and so I didn't rise up to any help.
Did you and your family have a faith life at all early on in your life, or did you go to
Yeah.
church at all?
Yes, well, I'll tell you, it goes back to Wauwatosa again. I was a Protestant. I was going to Episcopalian church and very, very active in it as far as a reader, as far as instructions and other sort. But when I came along and met Donna, her whole family was Catholic and going forward in that faith, and I thought, listen, if I join them in this new faith, which would have been, as a matter of fact, Episcopalian and Catholic are very close together. But I thought it was the best for our marriage and relationship to take my instructions in the Catholic faith, and that's what I did.
When you went to church, did you ever participate in activities or any social events going on there, or was it just kind of you just went to church and that was that?
No, I loosened up, I relaxed, I liked the people around me, I contributed to gymnastics. I was a coach. I was, as far as the actual hour of faith, I was a reader. I also sang. I can't forget that. I sang quite a bit. As a matter of fact, the 4 churches that I was a member of, I was always a member of their choir, and that was my my enjoyment.
Also, as a kid, I remember you mentioned that you had hobbies. Can you describe some of those?
Yeah, I did a lot of reading. I like fiction, and as far as growing up with other things, I have to add one thing to it. I wouldn't ask help, but I was ingenuitive and mechanical about making something that I'd be proud of, and I have a picture of it here. I built a soapbox racer, and it really turned out nice. Oh, here's my soapbox racer. It was a beauty. I was taking race after race. The races were run in Wauwatosa, down Watertown Plank Hill, over by County General Hospital, and that was my pride and joy. I was winning everything, so that was part of doing having a hobby when I grew up.
Do you remember what it was like to win, or were there any crowds watching? Was it a kind of a big event?
At these races of
Yeah.
mine?
Mhm.
Oh, yes. Here I have another picture from the Milwaukee Journal, and there were 48,000 people that day watching me win. Now I don't want to brag about this. I felt good in what I did, but why not? If I had a good car, let's see if I can beat them all. So.
Did you do anything else as a kid, like go watch sports games around town or in Milwaukee?
As I grew up,
Mm-hmm.
I spent a lot of time down at Hart Park in the village of Wauwatosa. I was a bleacher freak, you might say. I did not contribute. I watched everything that was going on, learned when certain events and sporting events were going to be held, and I'd head for Hart Park. and of course on my bicycle.
So you said in the pre-interview that you like to watch stock car racing at the state fair.
Yes,
Did that inspire you to make the soapbox car in any way?
yes it did. I'm glad you brought that up. Correct. I had that racing spirit in me, and I thought, why not try and have fun with it? Yes, as a teenager, as I say again, I didn't mingle with friends. I didn't need them. And I made my own fun, and that's when I showed up at Miller Park, at State Fair Park, and took in the races and enjoyed life.
All right, those are pretty cool. So, do you have any memories about what you enjoyed at McKinley Grade School and Longfellow Middle School?
McKinley Grade School and Longfellow were good schools to go to. They were close to my home. Could walk there in 5 minutes, either one. The teachers. I enjoyed having the teachers I had. As far as extra curricular activities, there again, I didn't involve myself. I guess, I don't know, maybe it was because I felt I wasn't good enough at it, so why embarrass myself, and so I didn't go into those sports.
Did you have any close friends during those years?
You know, I had one friend. He grew up behind me. We were the same age, went to the same schools. But again, he went his way with his girlfriends, and I went my way with my love of the sport.
Did you have any favorite class or subject at the time, do you think, that led to your career choice?
Yes, very much so. I had a deep desire in drafting and drawing. Mechanical engineer, architectural drawing. I loved it, and I had no feelings of going on to college with it. You didn't have to have college with it, unless you went into the leadership end of it. I just totally enjoyed having a drawing board in front of me and putting out the work they required of me, and later on it gave me the feeling of accomplishing something, and I always had that feeling of accomplishing, and that's where drawing came in, and also anything else.
Did you ever want to go to college, or was it always just you wanted to stick with drawing and then go with whatever came after that?
I had no desire to go to college. It wasn't the expense of it, but I felt I didn't need it in the avenue I wanted to go down, and so I didn't pursue it.
Did you ever consider trade school at all, or not that either?
Yeah, trade school would have helped me. I did have forms of it in night school. I had trade school and night school at home, correspondence. And I think that helped me with my desires to put out something that I was proud of.
All right. In the pre-interview, you mentioned that you had a relationship with the man at the gas station you would visit. Can you explain that story and of how he affected you?
Yes. He was a good friend, an old friend that owned this DX service station in Wauwatosa. And every day after school, that's where I would head. I was over there to assist him, to help him. For instance, if there were brakes to be bled, he'd put me up on top and I'd bleed the brakes for him. Those jobs that were not necessary, jobs that are necessary that couldn't be reached. So I helped him. I helped him run the garage. If a car needed washing, I'd wash it. Anything that he wanted me to do was fine with me because we got along together. We also had times where I was invited to his home, where his wife would cook us a meal. That's how close we were. And so that filled my feelings about friendship.
Did your time there help you with your career choice, or help you with like learning how mechanical engineering works?
Yes. Yes, it did. I did incorporate the thoughts that I've learned, that I did learn at the gas station, and it helped me go down the road with not new thoughts, but refreshing feelings about knowing what I wanted to do and how to do it, and those were necessary and helpful.
Do you think he influenced your work ethic or like outlook on life after being friends with him?
Yes, I think it did. Even what I want to bring up was, and what I did before. I was a loner person. I didn't congregate, didn't join any kind of group, but his friendship and his help took me through what I needed to know. I just asked him and he'd tell me.
All right. What do you remember about your high school experience at Wauwatosa High?
Experience at Wauwatosa High. They had a good gym, but it was a good place to. There was no other place that I really wanted to go to high school. I had no qualms over Wauwatosa East, and it was convenient. I learned what they wanted to learn, and I went on with life, graduating.
So many schools now have like woodworking or metalworking classes. Did they have any of those classes that you took?
Yes, I took a plastics class. Very interesting. It was one thing that I really got into, was the making of filing cabinets, anything that I could use or anyone else wanted to.
All right. So shortly after high school, you said that you met your wife. Do you remember how you met her?
Yes, I do. The year was 19. What was it? 19. 1960. Well, anyway, the Milwaukee Brewers came home with the pennant. And there was a big parade down Wisconsin Avenue. And this was about 1968. Anyway, there was a wedding that I was invited to stand up in. And us fellas showed up down on the avenue at Schultz to get measured. And after we got measured for his wedding, we came outside and there was a parade going by, and there was 5 girls, women, sitting on the curb watching the parade. And us 4 guys married 4 of the 5. That's how I met Donna.
So you said you walked out with some of your friends and you met them. Did you, like the 4 of you, were you close friends then afterwards you got married?
Yes. The 5 men and the 5 girls actually knew each other. And we didn't do a lot together before, but we sure picked up our friendship after. And it was fun. And then on top of that, I invited 3 or 4 of those guys to stand up in Donna and my wedding. So it was kind of humorous.
Did you and that group, or just you and Donna alone, did any of you ever do anything fun in Milwaukee?
Fun?
Yeah, or just like, did you do anything in Milwaukee together?
Well, see, Donna and the girls lived in a girls' dorm. It was a place that men were not allowed beyond the dining room, beyond the living room. And so we were restricted to that. But as far as having fun, we'd make our own fun. We would we'd take off, and as many as wanted to come along, we'd head for the lakefront. We would just talk a lot and bring up memories of the past, even though they were long before we knew each other. But it was fun.
So after you were married, do you remember how quickly you like moved into a house together? Settled?
After we were married, it didn't take us long to find our own house. It was in Wauwatosa. But we weren't financially set to own the home. We had a rent. And there were four more houses after that between Wauwatosa and Brookfield. We took them on as our own homes. We did what we wanted to them. It was a good time, a good marriage, but our first home that we did own was in Brookfield, and we had 17 years there, and we really enjoyed it. But now there are new decisions that we had to make because we couldn't handle the ownership of the home, our physical being. So my last place that we are staying at is a senior living complex. So we did the gamut on homes, and we think we did a good job.
What was it like moving around to different homes while raising your 3 children? Was that special for you?
Raising the 3 kids and moving around. Yeah, I looked foremost in having the kids first. Having the kids get into a life of their own that they could enjoy. I wanted that first and foremost.
Do you remember how the neighborhoods had changed since in your early life you lived in Wauwatosa and Brookfield, and you moved to different houses there? How had the neighborhoods changed?
Well, for the most part, I didn't like who I lived next to. Never did. First of all, I have to say, I'm an easygoing guy. I will say,
Daniel Pereira, report to the Henke Center. Daniel Pereira, report to the Henke Center.
I would first have to say that I chose the right things for the kids, and I would make life comfortable there for them, and also for us.
All right. So, in your pre-interview, you said that your first job out of high school was at Briggs and Stratton. Can you describe what you did there?
Yes. I was lucky enough to have a good friend who was a department manager, and he found out I was looking for a job and said, "Hey, Dick, I've got an opening here for you if you want." And I thanked him, and what he got for me was not the highest job, but it was an inspector's position. I had to work nights and afternoons, but I was the head of my department, and I had good people working for me. It was a good job.
So you said you were inspector. So what was in the job description?
Oh,
Like, what
okay.
were the duties?
Yes, I may have missed that. I was, first of all, on the assembly line. There were 4 assembly lines in that brand new building, and I was the line manager for the first assembly line, and that entailed making sure that the end product came out at the end properly, and then I advanced myself to the crankshaft department. More money. I had one product to make my decisions on, and it was good. I enjoyed Briggs and Stratton.
So, what sorts of things were you making on the assembly lines?
Oh,
Briggs and Stratton?
it was the small engines, particularly those for lawnmowers, snow blowers, those engines that are mounted on a chassis. They were my obligation.
So then after moving on from Briggs and Stratton, your next job was at the Milwaukee Road, correct?
Yes.
Can you describe what that was like then?
Okay, I was I was chosen, not really chosen. My dad got me that job on the Milwaukee Road. It was a job where I was on engine service. It all began in 1963, where I was assigned an engineer to follow for 3 months. He was my instructor, my teacher. When his job was called out on the road, I would go with him. I was in a learning stage of knowing the locomotive and how to run a train. And at the end of those 3 months, I went through a qualification examination, and the rules that we had to abide by. And at the end of that, after the oral examination, and I passed everything, I was assigned as a fireman. The fireman was the fifth man in the crew. It was a 5-man crew in those years, where I assisted the engineer, and there was 2 brakemen and a conductor. So there were 5 men of us that would take this train to Chicago, sleep over, get our rest, and bring it back. And I did that for 10 years when I found that I had enough seniority to run my own train. And then for the next 45 years, I ran freight and passenger trains. Here's me up in the cab. We didn't have a uniform. All they required was the shirt, and of course our expertise on handling the train. I have another one. I don't know if you can see that. That's how I dressed. I was in the cab running a freight train that day. I don't have too many pictures, but so anyway, for 45 years I ran freight and passenger, Amtrak, whatever I stood to be called for, I took. And then my last 10 years, I wound up down at Metra. Metra is a suburban service out of Chicago that takes the commuters that lived around the city of Chicago into city to go to work. That was a better job because I was running between 7 in the morning and 5 at night, and I had my weekends off. That was a good job. And here I am on my last day of running engine 113 and bringing it back up to Fox Lake, and I retired that day. And that was 1999.
So you said that working on the Metro, you had your weekends off?
Yes.
Weekends.
Weekends off.
So, how was that more enjoyable because you could spend time with family then?
Yes. Yeah, it absolutely opened the door for me to enjoy my family.
So then, why did you decide to switch from Briggs and Stratton to the Milwaukee Road? Was there a big factor in that decision?
Big factor. Well, I could say it very, very short. I got laid off. I got laid off at Briggs and Stratton, so Milwaukee Road was there, and my family's in Milwaukee Road, and I didn't hesitate.
So you just said your family is in the Milwaukee Road. Was that your father?
Okay. Good question. I became involved in Milwaukee Road because my father and my grandfather both worked down in the Milwaukee Valley underneath the viaduct in the service part of the company. My dad was a mechanical engineer in charge of design. When they would change the coaches and the looks of and advance them to a better looking train. My grandfather was foreman of the tin shops. Not such a glorious job, but he was a boss. And that's how I became attached to the Milwaukee Road.
So in the pre-interview you said that you had long work days, sometimes 16 hours. Was that difficult to be away from your family that long and working those long hours?
Yes. The federal law in my younger days railroading was 16 hours. You got a 2-hour call out of Milwaukee, 2 hours to report downtown for the train they had already made up. And sometimes it would take me 16 hours because there were intermediate towns that had sidetracks. And when Amtrak was getting too close, they put me away in a siding. And there I'd sit. And whatever train went through, I had to wait for. So, and then to arrive at the yard at the other end, maybe they didn't have a yard track for me. So that 16 hours could be gobbled up pretty fast.
So it seemed as though you did a variety of different jobs or things. You had many different occupations at the Milwaukee Road. What was like your favorite, or what made some better than others?
At the Milwaukee Road, I was designated as a cab member, nothing else. I joined the other 4 men. As I think I said before, there was me, the engineer, the fireman with me up in the cab, the conductor, and the 2 brakemen that took care of anything on the ground and the switching of that train. I got what I wanted. There was nothing else I wanted to do for the Milwaukee. So it all worked out fine. I guess my dad put my word in, or put his word in.
So were there any like smells that you remember vividly of working in the train? Did like it smell like one thing in particular?
Yes. There was constant noise too. I have my hearing aids on because I lost my hearing to the pounding of the 16 cylinder engines behind me, and the smell was there too. It was the exhausts of the cabs. There was no air conditioning, so as far as having a pleasant situation, there wasn't any. I had to put up with what they gave me.
Do you have any memories or stories about working on the railroad?
Yes, I do. I never killed anybody, but there were 2 incidences as I was coming out of Chicago, Halloween night. I was told on the radio that, Dick, milepost 21, there's supposed to be an automobile straddling the tracks. So be careful. And it was dark. my headlight picked that car up, and I had enough time to stop. And me and my head-end crew went down and opened up the trunk. There was a deceased woman back there. So we had to take our time handling that first, getting her with the law and emergency vehicles. And then there was 3 other times I hit 3 semis. Not because they were running alongside me, it's because when they backed into their retailer to unload their trucks, they weren't aware that the cab of the truck was not clear of my track, and I hit 2 of those 3. But they all know we make enough noise. They shouldn't have to make some crazy decisions about beating the train, because it's not going to happen. And, but I was lucky. I made it through without too many problems.
Yeah, so the first incident you described was kind of surprising. Do you think that took an emotional toll on you later?
Yes, it did. Yeah, it did. It's something you don't want to see, but somebody took it on their own to, I don't know. I was questioned about it, but I couldn't tell them what happened prior to that. So I just told them what I knew.
Earlier you mentioned you were coming back from Chicago, so your route was between Milwaukee and Chicago, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Did you like going down that way?
Yes, it was a good run. They maintained it well. The tracks were always first class. We could run on time because they paid good attention to the maintenance of the right-of-way. So I did enjoy the Milwaukee Roads main line.
Was there so you worked there for about 40 years or so, you said?
Yes, I did.
Was there ever like new technology being added to the trains that changed the way you worked?
Yes, of course. When I first hired out, there was still steam locomotives that were being phased out. But they were going toward the locomotive electromotive diesels. There was to be the future. They are like a diesel in a truck, but about 16 times larger. They had 16 cylinders, and as far as maintaining along the road, it didn't happen. It wouldn't exist because they kept their equipment in top-notch condition.
During your time at the road, did you ever take longer train trips? Because Milwaukee to Chicago is very short, but longer multiple day ones?
Yes, I would, when they needed a man and I was rested, they used me to go to Minneapolis, St. Paul. I would have, it was Amtrak mainly, which I really liked to run. And as far as going, see, my assigned division was Chicago-Milwaukee division, and that's where you were designated to stay unless you needed to everywhere else. And my my expertise of knowing how to run and in the best way, it seems like they came to me first if I were arrested, and it was more money for me, and it was fun because I saw something else along the way.
Was there a challenging part of your job that was especially difficult or that you enjoyed about it?
Challenging. Yeah. To be rested when you were ready to go. You wouldn't want to be out there on the road in a hot cab on a winter night and having your responsibility of getting that train from point A to point B and falling asleep. That was the biggest problem.
So, when you were taking the journey, you weren't doing very much. It was more just keeping an eye on everything and making sure everything was running correctly.
Yeah, I had a see, in front of me in the cab is a console that has numerous controls on it, arm's length, and I had to run the train with the knowledge of knowing that it was going to do what I wanted it to. It was a good system. I had no trouble with it. It was my buddy or my partner, my locomotive.
Did you have a favorite part about working at the Milwaukee Road?
Something good about what I did. Getting in as many hours and trips I could in the least amount of time, which can be done if you gave your time to them to make more trips in a month. That was possible. Like if you had something planned. Oh, I want to tell you about time off. That fits in here too. Time off, it was good. In the end, when I retired, I had 6 weeks of vacation a year and 12 personal days as I wanted to use them. So the time off, when I wanted it, it was there.
Okay, so in the during your time working, you mentioned there was the Berlin crisis, and then you enlisted in the Air National Guard. What was that like being in that?
Okay, I was coming down to a point where I graduated high school in 1956. And before I even thought of a career, I knew I had to accomplish fulfilling my military career. And what I found out was that, Richard, if you don't move on this, you're going to be drafted into the Army. The draft was new then. And unfortunately, my birth date was first on the recall. So I thought, I'm not going to get drafted. So I joined the Wisconsin Air National Guard. And it was the right thing to do. It allowed me to work when they wanted me to, I mean, fulfill my duties, and at the same time, make a living. And so it worked out.
Do you remember what your duties were or what you did while you were?
The Air National Guard?
Mhm.
I was a teletype operator. I specialized myself in forming and developing orderly rooms that were necessary to handle all the administration of personnel and assignments. And I would be flown to where they needed me to satisfy their orderly rooms, and I would get them going and have them running and then moving on to another. So it was it wasn't a braggable job. It was an administrative job. That's what it was.
So I know you're stationed here in Milwaukee. Did you ever have to go anywhere, or were you always just here?
When I was stationed in Milwaukee, there was a summer camp that we were required to do, and 2 weeks of. And that was up at Volk Field, up around the Dells. And but then there was other obligations. There was things you had to attain in Milwaukee itself. But I was a member of, in good standing, of the administrative part of moving soldiers.
So, when you were stationed in Milwaukee, did you get to stay with your family a lot, or did you have to be separate?
Yeah, outside of the 2 summer camps and TDY service, sometimes, well, as I told you, I would be moved around to where they needed me. But it never interfered. My family life was always available and free to enjoy, so that I got the 2 of them coordinated.
When you were stationed at Mitchell Airport, were there officers or higher ups working there that you looked up to?
Yes, there are. They were a good crew. They were from captain on and up to lieutenant colonel. I didn't socialize with them, but when I was on the base, they were good people to have near me. So if I had any questions, and also if we needed a good laugh.
Was your family ever worried about you leaving or getting moved, or were you worried about that too?
Yes, I was. Yeah, that was forever an open door as to whether they could have, in my category, I could have gone anywhere.
Okay. So after you were done with your military service and you were working, you said during the summer of 1967, during the riots in Milwaukee, you were working at the Milwaukee Road, correct? How did that change your work during that time?
Okay, it was a touchy situation. I was one of several engineers that when we were called to do local dispatching of equipment in the area, there were 8-hour shifts that you would choose and use, and during that that recall, they blocked pretty much of the city streets in Milwaukee, account of it. And what I did, I would take my locomotive on the rail and run it anywhere anyone wanted to go, as long as the rail was operable. I would take these people to their destination. Since there was no transportation moving up on the city streets, the railroad came in and helped them out.
So that was something that the Milwaukee Road picked up. At that time, it was something they assigned you to do?
Yes, I was assigned to do. I did not volunteer. I was assigned to help the military out.
So during the time too, there were like the lockdown of the city and curfew hours. Did that ever affect you, or did you just keep doing your locomotive?
Yes. From my home to my destination, I had identification on my windshield, and that got me through. If you didn't have that on your windshield, you weren't going to go anywhere.
Were you ever scared during that time that one of your passengers might get upset or something of that sort could happen?
Yeah, I was concerned. I was concerned that I could be approached by non-likable personnel. When you bring that up, I don't know what I would have done. But for the most part, military police and the city Milwaukee police were there if I needed them by two-way radio.
Okay, so also during the 60s, there was the first construction of the interstate. How did that affect you or like your job at the Milwaukee Road?
The first appearance of the interstate helped me. It was something that I took advantage of, and even though I was an authorized person to be out there with the proper credentials, the new highways helped.
Did train traffic decrease because more people were taking the highways?
Yes, they were.
Okay, so after all your after you were done working with the Milwaukee Road, you retired then. How was that like, and how did that happen?
When I retired from the Milwaukee Road in '99, I took more time being interested in what the kids needed, and I was around to do things that I had ignored around the house. I kept myself busy and not bored.
Since you kept yourself busy, what were some of the things you did afterwards?
After my career on the railroad,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the friends I did. I didn't. I still kept my personal thoughts within me. I was a helper for anybody that needed help, but outside of that, I went back to being a quiet person.
Did you take up any hobbies now that you had more time?
No. As a matter of fact, if there was anything I wanted to have done, naturally I had my retirement check coming to me, and it sufficed my desire to get things done that I hadn't done before, and to improve what I could, and that's the way I spent it.
So earlier on we skipped over something. You were involved in Demolay International. Can you describe what that is?
As a child.
Oh,
You said on the pre-interview that as a child you were involved in Demolay International with the Mason Service organization?
I was because my dad was. I was a public helper in anything that they wanted me to do. Although I didn't pursue it, it was something for me to understand how the Demolay worked. And well, it was everything I expected, and I enjoyed helping them out.
What sorts of things did that organization do?
What did the organizations do? Well, I actually was a manager and a person who would set up projects and meetings, and I was a footman, actually. A footman would be like a fellow who would accomplish something that others couldn't and came to me for. That's what I did.
But the organization as a whole, for people that might not know what the Demolay International organization did, like what sorts of things did they do?
Well, my dad was a Mason, step up. I didn't get into that. I was at the lower level making decisions for the younger class, and I did what I had to do, or what they asked me to do.
I guess we'll bounce back to like your later life, like after retirement. Do you remember throughout your lifetime, do you remember any major events that happened within the city of Milwaukee that affected you or like changed your view on the city?
There's nothing I can't come up with.
Okay.
So you also said here, when you ran your locomotive, that kids would put candy on the tracks?
Oh yeah, there's lots of things that went on the track. Anything to amuse them. You see, there are certain factors in sound that the engineer had to know. There were torpedoes that were small pieces of dynamite. And 1 mile, say for instance your train got into trouble and you're dead in the water and you know the schedules of trains coming up behind you. You had to send a man back, and he had fusees with him and he had torpedoes with him, and he'd set them up so many feet apart and light the flares that in the event something was coming at them, they would see that and immediately stop. That was one that I can think of.
So you said that you got time off from, quite a bit of time off from, while you worked at the Milwaukee Road. How did you like to use that time off?
Oh, well, it was used, well, for instance, anything, I was a member of the military then, and I had certain obligations to fulfill with them. And I used my off time to help the unit out. Outside of that, free time at the time I had were mainly improving things around my house that I have ignored and updated.
All right. So looking back on your life, what role do you think that Milwaukee has played or like had an influence on you?
I think it influenced me a lot for what I wanted to do and what I wanted to accomplish. Milwaukee had it. I didn't have to go far to accomplish what I wanted to in any manner throughout my life. I think Milwaukee was a plus, and so were the suburbs that I grew up in.
Did you ever consider moving away from Milwaukee, or why not? It came across my mind, but I don't think I could have accomplished everything I wanted to by relocating myself and the family. It was a good workable situation. So you seem to say that you enjoyed baseball both as a kid and as you got older. Did you like going to games often or listening to games on the radio? What did you like to do?
Not any more than I do today. I think what's bigger that I pursued my interests in were racing. Racing was my big one. I was out at State Fair Park a lot. I knew the drivers. I knew they knew me. I was a fixture out there.
Did you have a favorite racer, or?
Yeah, there were racers that took me out to lunch. Racers that would not really teach me a lot. I didn't want to learn much about it, but I just enjoyed being around the camaraderie.
Also, you said that one time you were watching a race and a racer you knew, Billy Vukovic, he died in a car crash. Do you remember that event?
Very well, very well. He lost control coming out of a north turn, and he almost put his car in my lap. He had no way of correcting himself. He was out of control, and he was headed right for the fence, and I was right behind the fence up in the grandstand. And I didn't get hurt, but poor guy died. Yeah, Billy Vukovic, amongst others, of course.
What was your relationship with him like? Do you know him personally?
Oh, Billy? Yeah, just like others, like Frank Barani. I was down in the pits. I was a person that could be welcomed down where they worked on the cars, just to be a shot in the arm for them, a guy to talk to, or why are you doing this or that. I was in the pits a lot, and that's where I got to know a lot of drivers and a lot of mechanics.
How do you think that crash affected you emotionally or mentally? Or?
Well, it took a while, because I knew him well. We'd joke together. We'd have laughs together. Yeah, it took me quite a while to get over that one. It's something you don't expect. It's something that you hope turns out positively.
So you also, did you ever, since you liked soapbox car racing, did you ever consider racing yourself? Or?
Oh yes, I had the desire, the fortitude, the feeling. I wanted, sure, I wanted to drive, but I didn't have the offers. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the opportunities. So being around them was enough for me.
I guess on the day of the crash, do you remember what the crowd was like or how everyone reacted? Was it hard?
At the track?
Yeah.
When that happened?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they didn't get up and leave. If anything, the crowd was supportive. Sorrow over a situation of losing a guy that you really knew, that you shared laughs with. That was him.
Were many of the races all local racers, or were there some like larger races from the big names from out of town?
Okay, the big names was on their own circuit. I knew them just as well as the local boys. It was something that I enjoyed. They never came to me for any advice, but I came to them.
All right. I guess in keeping with the theme of sports, also in your later life, you said you played golf. How was that? Was that just something you enjoyed doing?
Yes, I enjoyed golf through the years, and it got more serious as I was approaching retirement. I would golf the circuits as much as I could and enjoy it. There I had my own friends there too. My two courses I liked were Milwaukee out in Pewaukee and in Wanakee and Brookfield. I was also designated, I liked it so well, I was designated captain for both of those teams for as long as I wanted them. And that was a tribute to me that I was able to handle it. And they let me be captain for as long as I wanted.
Did you do more just playing with friends, or did you ever do any sort of competitions?
No, never got into competition. I just played an open game with friends.
Did you ever watch any big competitions?
Only on TV.
All right. So is there anything else you'd like to add, just in general, about anything?
I am glad for the experience I was given to do this. I enjoyed it. It's something that renewed my thoughts of the past and how I live my life.
All right. Thank you very much, and we all appreciate this, and we're sure that anybody that watches this will also appreciate your story. So thank you for everything.
Thank you.